So, what if our biggest modern fears, pandemics, superbugs, even the threat of biological weapons, what if they aren't random at all? What if they were actually foreshadowed in a prophecy written 2,000 years ago? Today, we're going to dive into the really provocative ideas in Dr. Chuck Missler's book, Behold a Livid Horse, which makes a direct line from ancient scripture to our anxieties right now. And it all starts with this powerful, chilling image, the fourth horseman, whose name is death. The fear of a global plague feels so incredibly modern, doesn't it? But the book argues it's actually an ancient warning, a prophecy that's just been waiting for the right moment and maybe the right technology to finally come true. And the scale we're talking about here is just staggering. The prophecy claims this one horseman is given power over 1/4 of the entire planet. Just try to wrap your head around that. That's a catastrophe that would dwarf anything in recorded history. So how in the world do you connect an ancient text to modern bioterror? Well, the author uses this really stark quote to frame the argument. It perfectly captures this terrifying new reality of warfare, where the deadliest weapons aren't bombs anymore, but these self-replicating bullets, bacteria and viruses. Okay, so let's start by grounding ourselves in the here and now. The author first looks at the very real threats that are already dominating our headlines. The book points out this really dangerous paradox. We celebrated conquering diseases like polio, right? But then we were suddenly confronted with things like Ebola. We invented antibiotics, these miracle drugs, only to now face these drug-resistant superbugs. And now, with tech like recombinant DNA, we can literally engineer diseases, not just fight them. The author suggests maybe we got a little too optimistic, a little too early, about winning the war on germs. And this brings us to the book's central, and I mean really provocative question. What if the rise of superbugs and the threat of bioweapons aren't just a string of bad luck in history? What if they are the fulfillment of a very specific and very, very old prophecy? To even begin to answer that, the book takes us way back to the source, the Book of Revelation, and this incredible moment when the opening of 7 seals unleashes the 4 horsemen upon the earth. First up, riding a white horse is a figure of conquest. The author here interprets this as a powerful political leader, who you might know as the Antichrist. He comes with a bow but no arrows, which suggests he conquers not through open warfare, but through some kind of deceptive diplomacy, a false peace. Right on his heels is a rider on a fiery red horse, and he symbolizes war. This horseman is given a great sword and the power to absolutely shatter that false peace, plunging the world into global conflict and causing people to turn on each other. Then comes the third rider, this time on a black horse, and he's holding a pair of scales. This is famine. He represents total economic collapse, a time of insane hyperinflation, where food is so scarce that a whole day's wages can barely buy you a single meal. And then the fourth horseman emerges. This is the one the whole book is about. His name is explicitly stated. It's death. And he's not riding alone. The scripture says a shadowy figure called Hell is following close behind him. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. It's all about how the author breaks down the specific language used to describe this fourth horseman. The entire argument really hinges on the precise meaning of just a few key words from the original Greek text. It starts with the horse's color. Most Bibles translate it as a pale horse. But the author argues the original Greek word, chloros, means something much more specific. It's that ghastly, sickly greenish color of a rotting corpse, a livid shade. So this isn't just a pale horse. It's a horse that is literally the color of decay. So the full verse lays out this horseman's toolkit for killing a quarter of the world: the sword, hunger, and death itself. But it's that fourth weapon that is the key to the author's entire theory: the beasts of the earth. See, to unlock the modern meaning here, the author says we need to redefine 2 of those key terms from that verse, beasts and hell. And his conclusions are probably not what you're thinking. When you and I hear beasts of the earth, our minds immediately go to lions, tigers, and bears, right? But the book asks a critical question: what are truly the deadliest beasts on our planet? And the author's answer is the microscopic ones, bacteria and viruses. He argues this ancient text was actually predicting the age of pandemics and germ warfare. And what about hell following close behind? The book is quick to clarify that the original Greek word used there is Hades, which isn't the eternal lake of fire, but more of a temporary holding place for souls that are awaiting judgment.
The image is just grim. Death on his livid horse reaps the body, and Hades follows right behind to collect the soul.
Okay, so if the deadliest beasts are actually microscopic pathogens, the author then takes his theory into its most controversial territory. He asks, what if the release of these pathogens isn't an accident? What if a global plague could be part of a deliberate, human-driven agenda? To support this pretty shocking idea, the author points to things like the Georgia Guidestones. This mysterious monument, put up back in 1980, has a first commandment that calls for keeping humanity under 500 million people. That's a reduction of over 90% of the world's current population. The author also cites some really controversial quotes from influential people, like this one that's been attributed to the late Prince Philip. He uses this to argue that some in the global elite might actually see humanity itself as a kind of plague on the planet that needs to be controlled. And finally, the author connects this whole line of thinking to the historical roots of the population control movement. He presents quotes from figures like Margaret Sanger to argue that this movement has always been intertwined with the philosophy of eugenics, this idea of weeding out the people who are deemed unfit.
So, what you're left with are these two fundamentally opposed views of the future. On one side, you've got the prevailing modern belief in progress, the idea that humanity will eventually conquer disease and achieve world peace. And on the other side, you have the worldview from this book that an ancient prophecy foretells escalating crises, all part of some kind of final judgment. And ultimately, the book leaves its readers with a really stark choice. Do you believe our future is one of steady, human-led progress toward a better world? Or are today's headlines about pandemics and global tensions actually the early tremors of a storm that was prophesied 2,000 years ago? The author has made his case. The final conclusion, well, that's up to you.